We're flipping them. Oh, Lord. Are we flipping them? What's up, guys? Hi, Chunky. Hi, Mike. How's it going, guys? I hope everyone had a really great holiday. If you celebrated. Otherwise, I hope you had a good week. Get some... Oh, you guys can see my hand. Get some shoutouts for everyone. Okay, I guess not. Hold on. I know how to spell climbable. I definitely know how to spell climbable. I didn't start to spell it wrong or anything. How's everyone doing? Good morning. It's Thursday. It's table flip day. And we're finishing up Broken Tales today. Thanks for coming in and stopping in. I hope everyone had a good Christmas. We very much just chilled out. Totally do. Yep, take that as I very much just chilled out. Joel's family celebrates Christmas on Christmas Eve. So yesterday we were really just I actually didn't feel too good yesterday. Myriad was throwing up a little bit. So I was actually very thankful that we didn't have to actually do anything yesterday because I was just big chillin'. I was alternating between sitting here and laying on the couch. But I hope everyone had a good Christmas. I hope Santa brought you guys everything you wanted. If he didn't, I guess I have to go to the North Pole and I guess I'm going to have to hunt him down. There is no other way. Also, my mom, I got my package from my mom today and she got me cookies. She sent me cookies. They're butter cookies. They're delicious. I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset that she didn't send me any other kind of cookies, but it's fine. Still sort of celebrating, honestly. Oh, nice! It's always weird when... I feel like it's weird when a holiday falls, like, in the middle of the week. Hello, Adward. Long time no see. I feel like it's always weird when a holiday falls, like, in the middle of the week, because it's, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like an actual holiday in that capacity. Oh, I can show you one gift I got. Joel's mom got me this little Tiffany bracelet. So it's got like the Tiffany smile on it. I thought that was really cute. Apparently all of like the ladies in the family are going to be getting them. I'm well behind. Is that like what kind of why you're like, because of the day of the week that Christmas fell on, you're a little bit behind, Mike? Hello. I don't have anything for you. Actually, I do have that for you. Should we give May May a greenie? Should we give May May a greenie? Because I've drank a lot. I don't stream and drink. Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Sit. Go. Be gone, child. I used to do this thing, so I had like off on Mondays for a while. So I used to do Star Drunk Mondays, where I used to play Stardew Valley. And it was like me 10 o'clock in the morning just getting drunk. Had to stop doing that. That was a conscious decision to not do that anymore. We have to be careful. We can't get crazy, guys. All right. Debating if I should put my glasses on, but I don't actually know where my glasses are, so maybe not. Last time we picked this up, last week, we kind of went through the system itself. We went through a little bit of the NPCs that they have written out in the books. The system is very interesting. It's very much a system that isn't reliant on dice rolling, which is nice. I find that lately I am drawn towards less mechanics heavy systems. and more systems that kind of place a heavy emphasis on the RP and the actual storytelling. I literally just gave you a greenie, dude. Get out of here. But I was really liking this system. So it is a... Let me double check because I have Alien on the brain. I've got Alien on the brain, so I'm thinking D6s. Yeah, I'm thinking D6s. Is this the D6 one? This is what happens when I have too many systems I'm running at the same time. Where is it? Position checks. Determining what kind of check. You evaluate the descriptors, then decide the consequences. Oh, actually, it's diceless. Isn't it diceless? It's diceless unless you decide you want to try to push it. Quote unquote, push it. So, your successes are determined by if you have a very specific descriptor that would help you with the check that you're trying to make, with whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. You get, normally if it is a check where your descriptor is relevant, you get 3 base successes. And then otherwise it would only be 1. So you would get 1 success. And then you would get any other additional successes based on any sort of anything else that is factoring in to give you that success, as well as you might be getting penalties for the check based on, again, if there's any like other factors. And then if you, let's say you only have 3 successes, but you need 5, you can choose to roll 2 dice, 2d6 dice. However, if you get a 1 on one of those dice, you fail the roll no matter what. So that is a system I really like. I like the sort of gamble that you have to take with it. So it's a very interesting system to me because of that. I like that there's actually, you don't technically have to roll any dice. However, if you do really want to, if you do want to try and succeed on a check, it is a gamble. I like that. I like that kind of system. That's a very cool system. Also, we cut our nails because Myriad could not take it anymore. But let's talk about character creation. So your characters are called hunters, and they work for the quote-unquote order. So your characters are going to be villains in any sort of fairy tale that you can think of. So like The Little Mermaid, Snow White. Your character could be a villain from one of those fairy tales. And due to the wish of the basically this child who is the chosen one, due to the wish of that child, basically the heroes became villains and the villains became heroes. So you are playing a villain turned hero. So the hunter's creation. Creating your own hunter takes some time, but it's also very satisfying. Broken Tales provides a large cast of ready-made hunters which can be used to get started right away. However, if the player's intention is to tackle a campaign, creating hunters from scratch can be a good option. Of course, nothing prevents you from mixing things up. Maybe some people in your group will create brand new hunters, while the others use the ones that we provide in the game. The hunter's creation does not simply consist of describing the protagonist on paper. Use the steps in the chapter as a guide, both for breaking the story of an iconic villain and creating mechanics to describe their powers. The process is called bringing a villain to their breaking point. That's how they'll be reborn as a hunter in the world of Broken Tales. Let's roll more RP. I am down. Yeah, right? I feel like even in like really heavy, like when I DM for like D&D, I don't actually call for that many rolls, to be honest. A lot of the times if a player is RPing something well enough, I don't want to punish them and make them roll for like a charisma check or something like that when like I think that their performance and their RP is really good. Like I want to reward that RP. So it feels like, I don't know, I feel like And this is obviously for certain tables as well, because not everyone's comfortable with RP. Not everyone is, and this isn't like a dig at anyone, not everyone is good at RP because it's a skill, and it's a skill that you have to actually like harness and foster. But I think that when you are good at RP, I think that that should be rewarded. So, step 1, collect sources of inspiration. Each Broken Tales hunter is derived from a fairy tale villain. The first step will therefore be to decide which villain to break and which source to draw inspiration from. It is important to choose a fairy tale, an essay, or another source that speaks of the villain in its most classic incarnation, trying to avoid modern takes. This is because fairy tales and classic stories feature characterizations very much in line with the Broken Tales mood, without the adjustments for modern sensibilities that are quite common with the more recent versions. This step is a good opportunity to do some research and maybe discover the dark sides of a fairy tale you thought you knew. I'm not great at RP, but I excel at yapping. You know what? I do be yapping too. I get it. You're good at RP though, Ad. So as someone who, like, I do like pretty extensive research when it comes to like making characters. So for one of my characters, I literally was doing like research on like Russian history. So I like that. I like that the fact it's encouraging you to like do research for your character and to like really look in depth. Because I think when you do research for a character, it definitely, I think it makes you understand them a little bit better. And it also, it's knowledge that you can actually bring forth within the RP. So I would encourage, like, I feel like I would encourage most people to do research for their characters. And obviously, like, if you're just playing a one-shot or something, I don't think that you need to, like, do full-on research for, like, a one-shot character. This is definitely more for, like, miniseries and maybe, like, ongoing campaigns. But, I don't know, I think that doing research and actually, like, putting a lot of thought into your character and the whys for your character really help you, can really help you dig deep into that character. I'm not good at accent work. I'm good at talking in character and going against my own desires, if that's not what I think they do. Yeah, and that's important. It's important to have that disconnect with your characters. There's definitely been times where I've struggled with that. I've definitely struggled with like well, I want this for my character. However, does my character want that for themselves? And especially like when you're playing in those very stressful games where there's a lot at stake and there's maybe like a lot of angst and stuff in it, it's hard to like let go of your character, especially one that you've sort of played for a really long time. Like as much as I loved and adored Cassie, and as much as it was really hard for me to let her go, and I struggled with that. I like hemmed and hawed about whether I wanted her to die or not. But at the end of the day, I was like, is this better for the story? Like, would it take away from the story and her own personal character arc if I had her brought back? And I was like, you know, it would detract from that. And I think actually like thinking about not only your character, but your character in the story as a whole is really important. One shot is defo play them like you stole them. Hell yeah. Like me as a person would go gambling with Joel, but my character would. Let's go gambling. Yeah, I think that it is important to sort of be able to, and if, of course, if you're not playing that type of game, if you are just playing like a silly, goofy game, then that's fine. But I think that if you are playing a rather serious campaign or miniseries or one shot or whatever, I think it's important to kind of separate yourself from your character. You don't want to have that like bleeding happen, because I think when you have that bleeding, between yourself and your character, it can get very hard to differentiate between things happening to your character and things happening to you. And that's when like feelings get hurt too. I've definitely seen that happen where people take it a little too personally when stuff happens in a game. And of course there is the opposite of, well, this is what my character would do. So it is kind of a fine line to walk on between doing what you want to do as your character and then also doing what your character would do, but also making sure that it's fun for everyone involved as well. Lots of nuances to be aware of while playing a TTRPG. An important note, in the text, the term fairy tale also includes many classic stories such as The Wonderful Wizard of Oz or Peter and Wendy, which are not technically real fairy tales. They are, however, stories that have entered the collective imagination in much the same way. In truth, Broken Tales draws from every source, including fairy tales, folklore, and classic stories, encompassing them all in the term fairy tale for practicality. Wom. I move my mouse. I don't know how much you guys can actually see, but I swear in the new year I'm going to get a better camera for this segment of the stream. Analyzing an entire text can provide a lot of material, but it is a rather long process. For this reason, a valid alternative to do is some simple online research. The web is full of sites that summarize and analyze classic stories, and Wikipedia itself can be a good starting point. Reading the story will underline or jot down interesting words, phrases, or entire passages. These elements will become keywords. As explained in the rules section, keywords will serve as a guide and inspiration in working out everything related to a hunter. Hey, Joe, thank you so much for that Prime sub. Welcome on in. Example, the hunter we're going to create is inspired by Captain Hook. I think I mentioned that in the last session of this. That Captain Hook would be a really fun character to play. This choice will allow us to illustrate the complete creation process and at the same time show how easy it is to create an alternative hunter to the canonical one, included in the ready-made hunter sheets. James the Swordsman in this specific case. To streamline the process, we'll use Wikipedia as an inspiration. So here are the keywords that they have sort of found while researching Captain Hook. Infamous, bad gentleman, loves music and poetry, challenges Peter Pan to a final duel. When beaten, Peter Pan, goaded by Hook himself, kicks the captain off the ship and right into a crocodile's gaping mouth. Hook is not his real name. Ruthless pirate captain, sometimes seems compassionate. It saddens him to know the Lost Boys hate him, even though he has earned their hatred. Hook is described as cadaverous, with blue eyes and long, dark curls of hair that look like black candles when viewed from a distance. Barry later wrote of him, in a word, the most handsome man I have ever seen, although at the same time, slightly disgusting. Honestly, what a mood. So basically what you want to do is when you're doing research for your character, you're going to want to go in and sort of highlight and take note of things about this character that set them apart from the other characters in the story. What about this character makes them unique in the story of Peter Pan? What about, like, Ursula makes her unique in the story of The Little Mermaid? What about the Wicked Witch makes her unique in the story of Snow White? Blah, 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 blah. Tell the hunter's backstory and bring them their breaking point. In this section, we need to describe how our villain is reborn in the world of Broken Tales, taking on a role and finding their purpose within the Order. We will write a short story trying to integrate all relevant keywords. You don't have to use them verbatim. Synonyms or phrases derived from the keywords will also work. In this short backstory, we'll focus on detailing these points. Who is the hunter and what do they do in the Order? What role do they play and how do they live in Broken Europe? What is the bond they maintain with their fairy tale counterpart? What is their breaking point? Or flip details from the classic fairy tale that make this hunter original. To accomplish all that, we'll flip one or more parts of the original story to separate the hunter from their classic identity as a villain. This inversion will serve to distinguish them from the original in their objectives or actions. The best way to do this is to think of one of the most distinctive characteristics of the villain and make it a flaw, if it isn't already one, or change its connotation completely. I really enjoy, so far, we're obviously not through the entirety of the character creation, but I really enjoy so far the attention to the character's backstory and like the details of character creation, between like researching and then like writing an actual short story for your character's backstory. I like that they are making that they're making that important, because I feel like I've definitely I'm definitely the type of person to write like pages for a backstory. Whether or not my DM actually reads all of that, I don't know. But man, I'm really loving this backstory, this character creation. It's so different because a lot of the times there's a lot of emphasis on like the mechanics first, and then you figure out the character afterwards. But I like the fact that you are very much figuring out who your character is at their core, and then you're writing a story about them to deepen that and to further that understanding of them. And then those mechanics or like powers that you're going to have are going to be separate from, you know, you're going to do that afterwards. Some examples. Guru the old wolf joined the order so as to escape the many humans chasing him. The strong and overbearing wolf of many fairy tales undergoes the treatment he has always reserved for others. Baba Yaga is a child witch and no longer the classic old hag that everyone fears. I like that. Trapped in the body of a little girl, no one really takes her seriously. She's relegated to a secondary role when all she would like to be is respected and feared, at least until she shows off her power. James the Swordsman is a gentleman who fights with honor and respect. He let his guard down against a mysterious boy and lost a hand for it. He suffered the archetypical low blow that the original Captain Hook inflicted on his enemies. As a man of honor, James would never dare do such a thing. The astonishing Pied Piper without a name lives only for music and has committed various crimes in its name. Money and punishing others are things that don't interest him. So those are just some examples of how to sort of flip that villain around and make them a good guy, while also still retaining the core of who they are as a character. Let's tell the story and take Captain Hook to his breaking point. I am a fearsome smuggler, and the sea has always been my home. With my trusty crew, I have traveled along the English coast, transporting all kinds of merchandise. We were outlaws in the eyes of fools, frightened of the word pirate. During one of my raids, I rescued a strange boy from the sea. Despite my instincts telling me otherwise, I decided to bring him on board. Never was a choice regretted more. A curse hung over the young man. The sky darkened and a terrible sea monster struck my ship. I fought until the end when its giant jaws closed over me. I survived, or at least my body survived. My heart stopped beating, and with it, my body began to slow process of decay. Immortal but doomed to ruin, I entered the order in hope of finding a remedy for the spell that afflicts me, and which the mysterious boy passed on to me. What's up, Alec? How's it going? Good morning. Good morning. For this story, we used the keywords fearsome smuggler, infamous. I will get food after stream. We got Indian for dinner. A strange boy, terrible sea monster, I fought until the end. He challenges Peter Pan to a final duel. When beaten, Peter Pan, goaded by Hook himself, kicks the captain off the ship and right into the crocodile's gaping mouth. Trustworthy crew, pirate, on my ship, ruthless pirate, captain, sometimes seemed compassionate. My body has started a slow process of decay. Hook is described as cadaverous, with blue eyes and long, dark curls of hair that look like black candles when viewed from a distance. I like that they took that, I like that they took just the word cadaverous and they expanded on it and literally just made that an affliction for him. I think that's a very good way of showing the fact that you can take you can take these long sentences and condense them into just minor keywords. However, you can also take a keyword and expand upon it and actually make that a very important part of your character and your hunter. Been a day, but we're doing it. How are you all? Doing pretty good. This is my first like kind of day off. I cleaned a little bit. I played a little bit of Marvel Rivals. Not a bad day. Hook's breaking point is that he has lost his great challenge, and with it his obsession with defeating Peter Pan. Now he is a walking corpse, but he would like to continue to be considered the infamous gentleman he always was. Step 3. Detail the hunter descriptors. In this step, we will define the 3 hunter descriptors. Descriptors must cover who is the hunter and what do they do in Broken Europe or at the service of the Order. What is the hunter's most distinctive asset/feature? What is the bond they maintain with their fairy tale counterpart? The simplest way to create a valid descriptor is to start from one of the keywords and use it as a guide for answering the questions given for each category, so as to set up an excellent starting point to inspire you. A hunter's descriptor must have both a positive part, useful/signals of resource, and a negative part. What's up? Gelexito? Pokemon in. A negative part, the downside, that will provide XP if brought into play. In this first step, however, it is good to focus only on the first part of the descriptor. Once you have defined all 3 descriptors, it will be easier to analyze them and find good downsides. What do I play? Right now, we're just talking some TTRPG stuff. We're going through Broken Tales, which is a dark fairy tale style TTRPG. However, I also do variety gaming as well as art. A descriptor must be written in the first person, in the hunter's own words. To keep the descriptors consistent, start with one of the following active phrases. I know/I have something. I use something. I get something. I own something. I am something. I want/I will be something. Descriptors have several functions in the game. They outline the background, behavior, and appearance of a hunter, helping the player to focus their interpretation. They can be invoked while narrating a position or defense check. To get 3 base successes instead of just 1. And again, you want to have more successes at play, because if you have to roll for additional successes you would need in order to complete a check, there is that chance that you will fail if you get a 1. At the end of each scene, if a descriptor has caused the hunter troubles, it can be checked off and then converted into 1 XP during the next interlude. They help the storyteller and the players understand the hunter's skills and what they are capable of doing. Descriptors are the basis from which to determine if a position check is necessary, what results can be attained, and what information the hunter has about a menace they are facing. In a campaign during an interlude, at the end of each scenario, it will be possible to change or evolve a hunter's descriptor according to what happened at the table. The creation of the descriptors is a very important step, but don't stress about it. As a player, focus on what you like and consider consistent with the story of your hunter, without thinking too much about practical applications in-game. The adventurers faced by your hunter will lead them, over time, to change and make their descriptors more relevant to the path they have taken. So you can evolve your using XP. I believe using XP as well as just play at the table. And depending on what happens in the story, you can make the descriptor evolve into something else, which also would, I imagine, give you a little bit more power within the world. The first descriptor describes who the hunter is and what role they play in the order. So this is the first descriptor for Hook. I am a fearsome and merciless ship captain, and with my crew of criminals and smugglers, I have carried out 1,000 raids. I'm always afraid of a mutiny, and that's why I don't trust others. This descriptor highlights that Hook is a skilled ship captain, and that his crew is useful and active resource. Unfortunately, Hook does not trust anyone, and his paranoia will surely lead him to hesitate at a critical moment. So during play, you can actually use that sort of downside, of Hook being mistrusting of people. You can work that into a check and give yourself basically a penalty with that check. And if you highlight that negative, the downside of the descriptor, at the end of the session, you'll get an XP in order to use it for an interlude. Second descriptor details one or more resources, characteristics, or special abilities that define what the hunter can do. Leadership requires decisiveness and charisma, traits I possess in spades, which is also why I win every duel. But I am a gentleman, and I often spare my opponent to prove my superiority. This descriptor represents Hook's abilities as a duelist and commander, especially when it comes to a challenge. However, our captain will let his guard down if a challenge is going his way. Again, I really like the this would be the art for Captain Hook, if you wanted it to be. Really love the art in this book. It is very beautiful. Just flipping through a little bit. Very, very beautiful art. The third descriptor will be linked to the hunter's dark ego, detailing the most powerful gift. I have an immortal, albeit repulsive body. My corpse-like appearance inspires fear in my opponents. Despite it, I love elegant clothes and comfortable, refined places. This descriptor portrays Hook as undead, able to continue even after suffering the worst injuries. His corpse-like appearance scares mortals, making him even more fearsome. Unfortunately, Hook can no more escape his former life than he could surrender its pleasures. We can't wait to see him in action at some party, as he awkwardly tries to pass for a distinguished nobleman. It's a distinguished gentleman. Creating gifts. Gifts are unique abilities that make the hunter special compared to ordinary humans. On a mechanical level, gifts are the player's way of defining the hunter's powers and abilities. So you have two categories of gifts. Normal gifts, which are the first two gifts that you get as a hunter. They generally are composed of two archetypal effects and one archetypal cost. And then the Dark Ego gift, which is the most powerful gift of any hunter. It can contain any number of archetypal effects, but always require the archetypal cost activator, the descriptor that describes what the hunter must do or has to happen for the gift's power to trigger. And this can also be triggered by inflicting one wound on yourself. So the Dark Ego gift you can only use either by inflicting basically an injury upon yourself to activate it, or there has to be a very specific situation to occur in order for you to activate that gift. Describing what the gift does in the story. The first step in creating a gift is to describe what happens in the scene when the hunter uses it. Based on the linked descriptor, the keywords, and what we would like the hunter to do, we need to explain what the gift does in order to have a foundation from which to process all the mechanical effects. So you would, there are options at our disposal to find a base gift to build upon. You can find a relevant gift from a hunter sheet. So there's a bunch of hunter sheets and everything in the book that you can basically just draw from. You can find a relevant gift from one of the Order's treasures. Read more about them. So those are that's in an expansion. Or you can add two archetypal effects and one archetypal cost together. Each effect grants a special rule that can be readjusted to the hunter's backstory. So you can basically pick and choose what you want to use if you don't want to create something kind of completely from scratch. The number of archetypal effects is not limited in the case of the Dark Ego gift, and the activator is extrapolated as a descriptor from the gift's effects. It is essential to describe what the gift does in the story before settling on what it will do at rules level. By visualizing what happens when a hunter uses their gift, it will be very easy to sift through the similar gifts from other hunters, archetypal effects, and costs to make the right choices. Example, all ready-made hunter gifts are created on this principle. The descriptor says, I am a sorceress and my magical powers allow me to do whatever I want. I need the right amount of time to cast my spells. Hence we decide that Baba Yaga can literally get what she wants with magic, but each spell must have its own magical formula and a physical object to use as a focus. The archetypal effect is manipulating reality, and as we have formulated it, Baba Yaga can literally do anything she wants. From the description, it is clear that the use of an object can be associated with the archetypal cost sacrifice, to which we add soma expenditure to limit the power of the witch. So that's like another interesting point, is that you have to make sure that you are not making the powers too OP. Like, you definitely want to have some sort of resource cost there. And that is something I do like about this system as well, is that it very much focuses on your resources. And I'm not talking about like physical resources. It's more of like your soma, which is something that you can expend to obviously use a gift. And your XP, and you want to make sure that you are using those resources given to you in a way that is conscious that those are not infinite resources. They're very finite. The gift becomes, therefore, when you want to achieve something, you may use witchcraft. Choose what you want with a sentence like, I want to fly on that old broom, or I want to look like a demon in the eyes of those fools. Your spell must be focused on an object in your possession, such as a broom to fly or a mask you can wear to look like a demon. Pay a cost of 0 to 2 soma, decided by the storyteller, to activate your spell for the duration of the scene. Remember that you can't ask for someone's sudden death, but you can inflict wounds with your actions through magic. In the case of Babai the Judge, we imagine the hunter with a large dark body that blends into the surrounding shadows. Babai can scare anyone, and only the bravest can hold his searching gaze. His gift has become, you are like a sinuous shadow that can reach anywhere. During a scene, you can arrive at a location by covering any distance and overcoming any obstacle if one of your allies or NPC calls your name. When you manifest your true nature, everyone who witnesses it will be frightened and will not act against you unless you threaten them first. The storyteller may ask you for a position check to frighten particularly powerful characters. Receive 1 additional success on all defense checks you make against the actions of someone who is now fearful. Because this is Babai's Dark Ego gift, we can use as many archetypal effects as we want. In his case, they are freedom of movement, to move in the shadows, manipulate NPCs for the fear effect, and 1 additional success to strengthen the potency of the gift, as we have specifically said that only the bravest dare to threaten Babai. Keep in mind with fundamental rule for creating a gift. The narrative coherence of the gift's effects is more important than how strong the gift is. Don't concern yourself with gifts that are too strong or too weak, but rather focus on gifts that are consistent with the narrative characteristics of the hunter, making sure they add something to their story. So you shouldn't be worried about, again, you shouldn't be worried about making your character the strongest that they actually possibly could be while foregoing the details of your character's backstory. You want to make sure that the gifts that you are giving your character actually make sense for the story and for them. And that's very much a story thing as well. It is a power balance thing within the game. And I think that when you're probably playing this game, and I think that it is very much the storyteller's job at that point to kind of nix any sort of powers that might be a little too much. And I could see definitely why maybe doing like a session 0 for this game and kind of building all of your characters together would be a little bit better than everyone building their character kind of alone, because you'd very much be able to sort of balance off of each other. All of the players can sort of use each other as a gauge as to maybe what is too powerful, what isn't. There is a part of me that I think it's like that D&D part of my brain where I'm like, man, I wish that they just laid everything out for me. But I also enjoy like the fact that this is very much sort of presents a challenge of actually thinking about what powers would work for your character and actually making them feasible within the story. And then we have archetypal effects. So you get 1 additional success, which is when you use the gift, you would get an additional effect based on a particular situation. So like if you meld into shadows, you obviously would get an additional success if you were trying to stealth around. 2 additional successes, so you get 2 additional successes on hunter checks in a particular situation. Same for 3 additional successes. An additional action, this allows the hunter to act 2 times consecutively in an exchange. An exchange is basically like a turn to act 1 extra time during an exchange or to perform secondary actions. Advantage token, the use of gifts grants hunter 1 or more named tokens linked to the gift itself. The hunter can then spend the tokens to create an additional archetypal effect. Allies, 1 or more NPCs are in the hunter's service. Ooh, that kind of like reminds me of like contacts and like VTM, like having a contact, or even having, I think ally is one of the backgrounds for VTM. Automatic successful outcome. A single check performed by the hunter is automatically a successful outcome. Create a descriptor. The hunter can create a descriptor that allows them to power up or extend their abilities. The descriptor affects the hunter, modifying their abilities. Dampen. For 1 action, the hunter is able to prevent an enemy from using a gift or lower their opposition level. Disguise. During the course of a scene, the hunter can appear different from what they really are or make sure they are not noticed by others. Freedom of movement. The hunter is allowed to move freely, ignoring environmental and enemy restrictions. Hello, Bashman. Get XP. The hunter receives 1 or 2 XP for achieving a particular type of action related to their story and personal goals. Inflicting a wound. This allows you to inflict 1 wound on a target or inflict 1 wound by simply activating the gift. Interruption, this allows you to interrupt an opponent's action to activate a special effect or act before them. Manipulate NPCs, the hunter can impose conditions and behaviors on the NPCs they interact with. By default, the effect is automatic on minor NPCs and may require a position check for major NPCs. Hi, Cookie! Thanks for lurking. Manipulating reality. The hunter can decide on an effect and make it real. The effect can be varied based on context and encompass several other archetypal effects, such as reshaping the environment or inflicting a wound. It is usually good to specify what can be done and what falls within the limits of the gift, such as affecting or not affecting living beings. Multiple benefits, a list of minor advantages from 2 to 4 effects that the hunter can use independently or all at once. Multiple targets, use the gift allows the hunter to hit more than one target. Obtaining information provides useful information to the hunter on 1 or more specific topics. Recover Soma. The hunter can recover 1 Soma by achieving a particular goal, such as demonstrating something or making progress towards a personal goal. Recover Wounds. The hunter can recover or help someone recover 1 or more wounds over the course of the scene. Replication. The hunter can copy a gift or descriptor they have seen in action. Oh, that would be really interesting. I'm trying to think of what character would do like the replication. I feel like that would be a really interesting power to use. Reshaping the environment. The hunter can impose conditions and changes to their environment, creating a dedicated descriptor. Resources. The hunter has or can easily procure whatever resources are needed. Hello. Hi, Rad. How's it going? This includes special items that grant 1 additional success. Support. Using this gift allows the hunter to grant 1 or more additional successes to an ally. If this is applied to an NPC, the gift allows them to increase their opposition level. It is also possible to bestow other benefits such as Soma, wounds, or temporary descriptors. And then we have archetypal costs. So these is a series of limits to prevent gifts from being used excessively during the game. So again, you want to make sure that you have 2 archetypal, for your normal gifts, you want to have 2 archetypal benefits, and then you want to have an archetypal cost to kind of offset those benefits. So Activator, this is for the Dark Ego gift only. The activation of this gift is dependent on the descriptor, which acts as a trigger and represents the link between the hunter now and what they were in their fairy tale origin. Bonk. Check limit. The gift can only be activated during a certain type of check. Checks penalties. After the activation of the gift, the hunter receives 1 or more penalties for the position or defense checks, either for an action or the whole scene. Wow. What's this? This is Broken Tales. It is a dark fairy tale TTRPG. It basically turns a situation has happened which has turned the heroes of fairy tales into the villains and the villains into heroes. And this is basically, we're going over character creation right now. So the characters, which are called hunters, are villains who have basically been flipped on their heads. Yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool concept. The system is very interesting. So you can play diceless. However, in order to make checks, you do have to have D6s if you want to gamble on it. So you start with a base of 1 success when you want to make a check. If you have a descriptor that is relevant to the check that you're making, you get 3 base successes. But let's say you only have 3 base successes and you need 4 in order to complete the check. You're allowed to roll 1d6. Actually, you're allowed to roll however many d6 that you want. I think it's up to like 3 levels more than, so you're allowed to roll like 3 more. So, but if you get a 1 on one of those d6s, you automatically fail the roll. So if I already have 3 successes, I need 4, and so I roll, let's say 2 dice because I want to be greedy and I want to see if I can get like an additional level of success, but I get a 1 on one of those dice, I automatically fail the roll, the check. So I like that it is very much giving you a choice as to whether or not you're going to want to be greedy. Drawback descriptor. Activating the gift allows the storyteller to create a related descriptor that highlights a flaw or loss of control. Drawback token. The use of the gift grants the storyteller one or more named token linked to the gift itself. The storyteller spends the tokens later on to represent a long-term cost to the hunter, creating a negative descriptor, assigning one penalty, or other effects. Bonk. Increment expenditure. The gift can be activated as an increment. Narrative limit. The gift can only be activated when a specific condition manifests in the narrative, such as during a one-on-one challenge or in the presence of a specific object. Once per scenario, the gift can only be activated once per scenario. Once per scene, the gift can be activated once per scene. Once until the next interlude. After being used, the gift recharges after an interlude. I do like that they have like the different, because it's nice that they kind of break it down from like scene, interlude, session, essentially. Random effect. This activation of the gift is linked to a die roll. When the chosen numbers are rolled, the gift may not work at all, or does work with a serious drawback, or something totally unexpected may happen. You planning on running this? Eventually. I think it would be really fun to run this. I feel like I would need like a very specific table for this, because it is, from what I've been sort of reading about it, and as we've gone through the book, it feels like it's definitely very like improv heavy, and so I think like I would need like a very specific table of people who are comfortable with improv and who are comfortable RPing, just because you can't really, it's a little hard to lean back on like the mechanics in this game, because it is kind of light mechanics, to be honest. Reaction to an event. The gift automatically activates or stops when a specific event occurs. Sacrifice. Activating the gift requires a special focus or the sacrifice of an expensive resource. Soma expenditure. Using the gift requires the investment of one or more Soma points. And then wound expenditure. Activating the gift inflicts one or more wounds. Volunteer says tribute. Bashman, we're gonna be doing some like community games coming up. I'm kind of making a point to do like community games. So if you ever want to get in like a community game, we're gonna do like monthly ones, I think. I'm debating right now whether or not I want the next one to be, we're either going to be doing, I think, Tales from the Loop or the One Ring. Kind of leaning towards Tales from the Loop, though. Not gonna lie. Just because I haven't, like, run or been in one of those yet. So I'd love to play that system, that game. Well, it's the Year Zero system, but... So, well, it wouldn't be Monday. It would probably be like a Saturday. Either Saturday or Sunday. It seems to work for everyone. I'm going to try to keep them on like Saturdays just because I know like staying up late and stuff. As long as Bash can't play OP runs. Sorry. Give the gift a distinctive name. Even if it seems trivial, the name of a gift reveals a lot about who the hunter who uses it. I will have my satisfaction, James the Swordman's gift, immediately clarifies the feeling of revenge that moves him. If you don't stop, I'll call the bogeyman, immediately makes them understand the true nature of Babai the Judge. Choosing a good name for a gift must not be underestimated. I like that because, like, I'm all about the pizzazz, you know? And then we have some more example of the gifts and how they can be used. And then you want to determine the reserve of Soma. A hunter's Soma reserve starts at 6 points and can be reduced or increased in relation to the power of their gifts. If the gift has many archetypal effects, it has a strong influence on a scene when it is activated or can be used with a very high frequency, you may want to consider reducing the hunter's Soma reserve by 1. If a gift is very situational, confers a very specific advantage, or is rarely used, consider raising the hunter's reserve by 1. What are we volunteering for? I'm gonna be doing like little community TTRPG nights, Foxy. So I'm thinking of running Tales from the Loop in January. I'm still like, I don't quite know how to do it because we had like 6 players for the last game. We did an alien game last weekend, and I want to make it fair for everyone. Like, I don't want to like show favor by like giving certain people like guaranteed spots in the games. So I don't know whether I should just do first come, first serve, like Yeah, I don't know how to operate that. Draw a lottery? Oh, that's a good idea. That is a good idea. Wait, I don't have a reserved spot? Oh, bitch.
What?
Joel's mad. And like I would totally run a game with like a TTRP, like a just like a community game with like 7, maybe 8 people depending. Um, but man, you motherfuckers be yapping. Me at Joel and Ad.
Whoa.
We'd have to have a yap limit if I had that many people. Hey, no, give me my sprite back. Bitch. Yeah, maybe that could be a good idea. If I have like a bunch of people express interest, talk timers, yeah. Or have a spot or two for certain people in lottery, the rest depending on the system, etc., etc. True. Like if I know, I know Sithy really has been asking for the One Ring game, so he's been asking about it for like the last like year or so now. So like I would automatically give him a spot because I know he's been like wanting it, and then maybe like the rest of the spots could be like a lottery system. You want people who are familiar with certain games, yeah. And I know like there's going to be like games where people probably don't have like an actual like interest in playing. So I feel like there's not going to be like a bunch of people for every single game like wanting to play. But if it's more than like 6 people, then I'd like, man, I feel bad if I have to say no to someone. But I think a lottery system might be a good way to go about it. I also didn't want to, like, I was thinking too of maybe having it like be like subs only, but I don't want to do that either. Cause like I know like, listen, times is hard. And I don't want to like lock people out of experiences by being like, you have to pay me $5 a month in order to get on this game. I'm used to Bashman. Relax. Relax, Bashman. And choosing the day and time. That's true as well. Some people wouldn't be able to do like certain days and times. You're gonna make him cry. So sad. So sad, Bashman. Wah. It's not your birthday anymore. Wah. Detailed equipment. The story told so far in the scriptures are basis for defining equipment for the equipment of the hunter. So you're basically going to figure out what actual equipment. 3 words. Kids. Oh my god. How complex is Foundry? Why are you saying no reason? It's on bite. Listen. I'm sorry, okay? Sorry. Sorry, Bash. God, you missed 1 game. Just hold it against you for a year. Each player must outline the hunter's possessions with the help of the following questions. What did the hunter do before joining the order? Do they have a home or allies to return to? Does the hunter bring with them a present from a loved one? Is it something they would never part with? How does the hunter deal with danger in combat? With what weapons and means? What items and possessions are essential for the hunter to do what their descriptors suggest? Does the hunter have something rare and unique or a great value with them? What advantages does this possession offer? Does the hunter have an object, a coat of arms, or symbol with them that gives them social importance? If I didn't give you shit over it, you would think something. Oh, Foxy, it was because we were supposed to play a Kids on Bikes game at GaryCon last year, but everyone got super busy at the time we were supposed to play it because that's very much something that happens. And so Bashman sent me a photo of, and I will have you know, Bashman, you were busy too at the time we were supposed to play, okay? I texted you and I called you and you didn't answer me until like an hour or so later, all right? So, just as much your fault as it is ours. Anyway. Hunter's Creation, wrapping it up. is good to stop for a moment and describe what has been created. Each player must portray the character that has emerged from the hunter's descriptors. The storyteller, meanwhile, can compile information relating to the order and the world of Broken Europe based on the same descriptors. For each descriptor created, the storyteller can ask one of the following questions. Where in the world is a characteristic to have this descriptor? Who created the equipment, technique, or ability outlined in the descriptor? Are the abilities of the descriptor unique, or do other subjects possess them as well? Why is that the descriptor is so important to the order? Is the order aware of the descriptor? How does the hunter keep the descriptor hidden from eyes of ordinary people? Who allowed or taught the hunter the power of the descriptor? Why is the descriptor so important to them? Yeah, I was busy setting up the game that no one showed up to. I called you. I called you, man. I think I even called Duff, too. I called multiple people. I like this part where it kind of you build out your character and then you go through and then you have the storyteller go through and ask like follow-up questions in order to actually deepen the meaning and actually integrate what you've built for your character into the world that you will be playing in. He's gonna cry. Yeah, that's so true. You're so right, Foxy. And then he's gonna whine that I'm ignoring him. You can't win. You just can't win. So then we're going on to scenarios, and yeah, we'll read a little bit on the scenarios. There is one particular scenario. There's an Alice in Wonderland scenario that I want to check out as well. So when you're going into a scenario, there are safety keywords that you have to be aware of, just because they will let you know sort of anything that might be sort of triggering to your players that happen within the scenario. So if you get your players together and you are going through the scenarios and you give them the list of keywords and they're like, ooh, I don't know about that one. Either, you know, if your heart wasn't actually dead set on running that particular scenario, switch to another one that might be a little bit more palatable for everyone. Scene trees in each scenario. The information provided is limited to what the storyteller really needs to manage the game without setting up a plot in which the choices of the hunters would have little weight. Scene tree, on the other hand, offers a plot to follow and is an excellent system for a group of newbies or to run a single session. If even the storyteller is not planning on using the scene tree, the information provided there makes for useful additions and can help bring focus to various parts of the story, such as places and characters. Just a psychotic circus the whole time. It was crazy. So I like that they give you the option of a scene tree. So basically the scene tree is just, it's a guideline for the scenario that you want to run. It's something that you don't necessarily have to use. However, if you want to kind of do almost like, if you're not super confident with like your improv or like your RP skills, I think it would be beneficial to use the scene tree because it kind of lays things out for you on like what points you're going to need to hit in each scene in order to get through the scenario. I download the client without buying the license, so I haven't messed with it myself. Only watched videos and such on it. But why are you asking about Foundry? Oh my god, look at this freaking art, man. I love it so much. Choosing the hunters. After reading the scenario, the storyteller could opt to exclude some hunters from the roster if their gifts would cause problems in a scenario, even if players are otherwise free to choose. To give an example, Bluebeard's gift, the key to every door, allows you to read the memories of a corpse. This can make the storyteller's life difficult if the scenario opens up at the scene of a crime, with the dead person being immediately interrogated by Bluebeard thanks to his gift. Even if Broken Tales is based on the absolute choice of the hunters who hold the reins of the story, the game must always also be fun and interesting from the storyteller to run. Hi, Lady M. Mind your business. You're a bitch. Not you, Lady M. I'm talking to Joel. That's what our AC... Oh, gotcha. Has Duff made the switch to Foundry instead of Fantasy Grounds? I do like that. I like that it kind of feels bad, like if you create a character and then you like your storyteller goes to run a game and they're like, you can't use that character. So that does feel a little bad, I imagine, but I feel like if you already know the scenario that you're going to run, you should bring the scenario to the table and then have everyone make their hunter. I got called that at work today, so it's, oh no. Oh, that sucks. Scenario creation. Broken Tales scenario is at its core a set of information that the storyteller prepares before the game session, including events, characters, and other details. A good scenario introduces an interesting mystery for the hunters to investigate, leaving a lot of room for the players to maneuver between the scene and the next. One scene and the next. What's up, Vlad? How's it going? This book presents many ready-made scenarios inspired by as many classic fairy tales, which the storyteller can use to dramatically cut the preparation time. You might want, however, to break a fairy tale not featured in this book or break one that we've covered, but put your own spin on it. This section is designed to explain in detail the procedure to do so. Okay, switching to Foundry. All Free League stuff has Foundry VTT packages, and Modiphius is working on doing the same. Oh. That's fair. Yeah, I've been really loving Free League lately. I feel like they're just coming out with banger after banger, you know? Step 1, you're going to choose a fairy tale to break. To begin, the storyteller will have to choose the underlying fairy tale. As for the creation of the hunters, in addition to books, the web is full of sites and sources about classic fairy tales. The scenario itself doesn't have to be in an inverted version of the original story. What matters is that its core elements are present and used in original ways. A good idea for an interesting story is to play more important than consistently following the fairy tale story. If you creatively use keywords for inspiration, you'll see situations and characters emerge organically. I've been enjoying The Walking... Oh man, I haven't played The Walking Dead yet, but I'm excited to play. I played... Alien is so much fun. Alien is so much fun. We just did it... Actually, my first little community TTRPG night, we did the Hadley's Hope one-shot for Alien. And that was a lot of fun. I love the Alien system. I love the Alien, like, world. So I'm always excited when I get to play or DM it. Not if you die. It's when. It is definitely when. Everyone died in the one shot I did, and they got pretty close to the end. Very sad though. Womp womp. They thought they were. I'm gonna share the story again. I think I shared it on Monday when I streamed. So Scythie had made it onto the shuttle to get out. However, Scythie and Joel had made it onto the shuttle to get out, and they didn't realize that facehuggers were waiting for them inside the shuttle. So they got face hugged, and the last scene that we left off with was them waking up after being implanted, and Joel's character asked Scythie to shoot him in his chest where the chest burster would be, so that maybe they could kill the chest burster without actually killing Joel's character. And so Scythie actually just turned the gun on Joel's character and straight up killed him, just shot him right in the head. And then Scythie tried to do the same thing with the chest burster in his chest. However, Scythie forgot that the xenomorphs have acidic blood. So yeah, he shot it and definitely probably killed it. However, then his insides got eaten by acid. So rip. It was rough but fun. Yeah, ask Foxy what my character did in the Hadley's Hope game we played. Oh, what did you do? What did you do? Pray up. F. Step 2, jot down the keywords. So again, the same way that you're going to jot down keywords from the fairy tale for your hunter, you're going to do the same for the actual fairy tale itself as the storyteller. Step 3, define the opponent. Girl. What? Relax. I know you're wagging a little tail. Relax. It's not about you. Step 3, define the opponents, the other main NPCs, and their agenda. Before writing a scenario, it is good to define the main characters on the stage. First of all, choosing the main antagonist of the scenario is crucial, since many of the challenges the hunters will face are center on their opponent. In Broken Tales, parts are switched. The bad guys are now hunters, while the good ones become the Broken Tales at the centers of the scenarios. However, casting the original protagonist as the one who pulls the strings can become boring fast. It will often be more interesting to assign this role to a secondary character from the original fairy tale. Many players approach the game taking for granted the classic twist of good people turning bad, and will surely be surprised if the real enemy is not who they expect. I'd have handed the keycard off to the doctor. Everyone spent forever trying to find out. Frame another person and people killed over it. You fucking bitch. You bitch. Every single character in the fairy tale can be a good antagonist provided they have the right motivations. Considering that the original villains of a fairy tale often become hunters, it is not necessary to include them in the scenario if an interesting role doesn't naturally emerge in the story. It is much more important to add depth to all of the other characters. In the following paragraphs, we will show the step-by-step process of creating the scenario of Red Hood Iskra as an example. Spoilers ahead. I'll read only if you intend to play the role of the storyteller. Uh-oh, guys. Seems we're at an impasse. So this is a really cool table. It shows you basically roll a d6, and then you have your who, what do they want, why, and by what means. So this could help you establish either an NPC. It can establish the main villain, perhaps, or one of the villains that your characters, the hunters, might encounter. Each NPC in the scenario must have an ambiguous role. While we are discussing villains and switching roles, note that it would be a mistake to think that all NPCs have to be evil. Frequently, an opponent with logical motivations is more interesting and charismatic than those who are evil just for fun. Make sure that different NPC types are represented in the scenario, ranging from those with noble purposes to those who are driven only by their own base instincts. The protagonists of the original fairy tale should have a prominent role in the plot, even if they're not the main villain. Again, more tables, so they act like this: opposed agenda, favorable agenda, non-aligned agenda. Really cool. So opposed agenda would be basically if they're opposing, if they would be opposing. So if you're making an NPC and you're like, I want this NPC to be an enemy to the PCs, then you would roll on an opposed agenda to see what the opposed agenda would be. If they are going to be an ally of your PCs, you would roll favorable, and then if they're sort of a neutral party, you would do non-aligned. NPCs with an agenda that is opposed to the hunter's purpose. If not a direct follower of the main villain, they could be someone who takes advantage of the current situation or who generally does not appreciate the hunter's presence. An NPC with an agenda that supports the hunter's purpose, or that simply has a good reason to be angry with the main opponent. NPC with a non-aligned agenda. They can be both an enemy or an ally based on the choices the hunters will make during the scenario. I like that they have the inclusion of neutral, quote-unquote, neutral NPCs who, depending on what your players do, could very much turn out to be either an ally or an enemy, and they will act accordingly. So I like the inclusion that you want to have those NPCs who are sort of teetering on the line. Definitely because it makes it should make your players think about their actions and think about how they want to interact with NPCs. Because, it helps to not be an asshole. Give the scenario a backdrop. All the stories and events of Broken Tales are set in the late 1700s of an alternative Europe. More precisely, the year 1780 is used as reference for events and places. This year is not binding, and events may span a few decades forward or backward to include a place or a historical event useful to contextualize the scenario. Doing a little research can provide useful inspiration. The 18th century is a period full of events and changes that complement the rural and dark context of Broken Tales. No comment. Listen, everyone's gotta stop murder hoboing. The story so far. Now that we have a starting point, some main NPCs, and a location where the scenario is set, it's time to write what happened before the hunters arrived. In this process, some keywords will have to be flipped to create the breaking point of the scenario. The following example, you will find the keywords that we considered useful for the next step highlighted. Red Hood Iskra's background story. Elizaveta of Volhynia, the main antagonist, inspired by Little Red Riding Hood's mother, has always been an attractive woman accustomed to the rich salons of the gentry and the pomp of nobles and courtiers. Becoming pregnant with Iskra, her eldest daughter, was a curse for her. Abandoned by her wealthy lover, Elizaveta was impoverished for years with few skills, little work, and only help of her old mother, Anastasia, inspired by the sick grandmother of Little Red Riding Hood. A chance encounter with Gerard Dubois, minor NPC, who is ignorant of her past, has rekindled Elizaveta's ambitions for a life of comfort and decadence as the future wife of the nobleman. Elizaveta, determined not to miss such an opportunity, sent her daughter Iskra alone to visit her grandmother. Elizaveta knew that she was exposing her to the dangers of the dense forests of... Wow, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. Well, Bashman's out. Well, sorry, Bashman. No murder hoboing. A place full of beasts and bandits and deadly to the unwary. 10-year-old Iskra trusted her mother and disappeared forever into the darkness of the forests. Anastasia had always treated Iskra with love and kindness, and overwhelmed by the grief of her granddaughter's sad end, died soon after. Free and unattached, Elizaveta fled to Gévaudan with her new husband, unaware of her daughter's real fate. In fact, Iskra did not die, but joined Greskar's wolf pack, inspired by the Little Red Riding Hood's wolf, becoming a wolf herself. That's pretty interesting. I'll find a way. Death finds a way. The story when the hunters arrive. The background details of the story will lead to the intervention of the hunters. The next step is to briefly describe the situation that will unfold from the first actual game. This is important to clarify the storyteller's ideas and to detail the main NPC's agenda. The NPC's agendas are key to the scenario because they guide the storyteller's decisions, particularly when deciding how the NPCs react to the hunter's actions. The story when the hunters arrive in the Red Hood Iskra. Love it. I don't know if you're going to find... I don't know if you're going to fit. Come here. Come here. Are you going to fit? Come. Come. Your little nose, Mima. Alright, see you later. She said goodbye. Didn't like that. She didn't like it. She's whining at me. Iskra didn't die in the forest of Bialowieza. Whatever. Instead, there's too many accent marks in that word. I know you guys probably can't see it too well, but there's too many accent marks in that word. Instead, she faced every trial with a fierce tenacity and eventually prevailed, defeating Greskar. A huge ferocious werewolf, Greskar infected Iskra with the wolf's curse. Becoming a member of the pack and the favorite of the alpha Greskar, Iskra set off for the Gévaudan, following the scent of her mother, determined to get her revenge. Thanks to the fury of the wolf pack, Iskra has thrown the city of Dufour into disarray. Now she waits in the shadows for the right opportunity to enter the palace and devour her unworthy mother. Elizaveta has realized what is happening, for Iskra left a pendant she had once made for her on the windowsill, a memento of a rare moment of happiness. Elizaveta, a cunning manipulator, got rid of the token and did not panic or lose her temper. After convincing Gerard to turn to the order, she will seek to move the pieces of the chessboard, using them to rid herself of an unwanted offspring once and for all. So, just say it like you know it's supposed to sound. I'd imagine no one here knows any better. True. So I like that. It's definitely, this is a setup for, you're obviously going to go into, or at least the PCs are going to go into the story thinking that Iskra, now a werewolf, so Little Red Riding Hood, now turned into a werewolf, is going to be the main main enemy of the story, the main BBG of the story. However, it's actually her mother. So that is like a good sort of turning the expectations on their head of, okay, so we're in the Little Red Riding Hood. We're in the Little Red Riding Hood story, and Little Red Riding Hood, we know that Little Red Riding Hood would be the main villain. So going in, I'm like, oh yeah, we'd definitely be facing off against Red Riding Hood. She would be the main villain, but actually having it be her mother instead is Real good. Something hanging over my fake wall. Step 7, define all the scenario parts. Now that we have a good foundation for the story and its main actors, it's time to define the stage for the hunter's investigation. This process is open-ended and does not follow a strict list of instructions. In brief, this phase consists of creating places, minor NPCs, and finally, events, which are particularly useful in managing the session. You often go back and forth between all of the various elements. This is perfectly normal. Indeed, it is much easier to create hooks and connected situations as you add details to other things, rather than planning on everything in advance. So this is where we see something, the difference between, oh god, that is blinding. That white balance, though. This is a much darker red on paper. So this is where we see the difference between difference in play between emerging story and the scene tree. So with emerging story, very much on improv and kind of going by what the player characters are doing. Where with a scene tree, you're definitely leaning more into those established events that you have written down, you've pre-planned, and kind of pushing your characters towards those events. So again, it's very much dependent on the type of play that you want to use. For probably people who are a little bit more familiar with improv, who are a little bit more familiar with like just DMing in general, might want to lean more towards the emerging story, whereas DMs who maybe are a bit newer or who just don't want to, just want to have like minimal prep, maybe just scene tree. Just do the scene tree because it's everything sort of written out for you. So defining places. So keywords for an urban area, a small village on the edge of the forest, a remote mountain community, a small seaport, a village along the major road, a remote military outpost. And then you can get more granular with these places. So, and kind of go into locations. So you have a mansion of wealthy family, an abandoned old tower, a natural cave complex, a mine, a clearing in the woods with a strange magical aura, blah, blah, blah. Each place must have a descriptor that outlines its characteristics. The place may also feature Alexandria and discusses scenes versus plots. Ooh. I like that. Scenes versus plots. Also, hi Mark, how you doing? The place may also feature one or more threats and a list of related situations. We have seen how to define descriptors and gifts. Now let's spend some words on the list of related situations. Using the list is never mandatory, but can often be a valuable aid. So you want to make a list of 3 to 6 items, then freely assign each of the results of a d6. Ooh, I see. So you would want to... So basically what you want to do is for a scene, for a location, you want to have a list of 3 or 6 items that are basically things that they're elements that can enter the scene randomly and that can kind of help give the storyteller to like new ideas to reinvigorate the plot when the players are like stuck. So, and then you would just roll a d6. That's why you won't have 3 or 6, because if you roll it, it's basically if you roll a d6, you can then have it, and then you'd have your 3 items. So I like that idea. I like that idea to have things, if your players get stuck, you can have something happen where it's not really you just handing them the plot, but it is very much you sort of nudging them gently towards the information that they'll need to know in order to move further into the scenario. So using the list is never mandatory, but can often be a valuable aid. The same result cannot be used more than once in the course of a scenario to avoid repetition. Lists of related situations mainly serve 2 purposes. 1, managing encounters. If a place is occupied or an area of NPCs are likely to pass through, each option would determine who will be present when the hunters arrive. And 2, bring clues into play. If the location contains information or areas to explore, a role can determine what the hunters discover when they arrive. I like that. I like that a lot. And then we have minor NPCs. While major NPCs emerge in the initial planning phase when detailing places and situations, it is good to drop some minor NPCs connected in some way to the plot. Minor NPCs will often be ordinary humans, but nothing prevents you from using secondary characters from the original fairy tale that have not found space yet. Each minor NPC must be linked to a main NPC or a specific storyline situation. They should be considered as a narrative hook that will be useful to give depth to what happens in the scene. So that's very much placing the importance on you shouldn't use NPCs just as filler. They should have an actual purpose. It doesn't matter that they're not a main NPC, but they should all have purpose when you place them into the story. Review the agenda of the main NPCs. Each main NPC must have an agenda, which in general is defined at the beginning of the scenario's creation process. Now that the scenario is almost complete, review all of the agendas of the main NPCs to ensure that they fit with all of the other elements. Minor NPCs may, but don't have to have an agenda. Often defining everyone's relationship with main NPC is enough to get started. So if you have, so basically, like if you have your main NPC, your main basically villain, and you know what their agenda is, and you have an NPC that, let's say, works for the main NPC, therefore their agenda should align with the main NPC's agenda. Whereas if you have a minor NPC that hates the main NPC, then their agenda would directly oppose the main NPC's agenda. Events of the scenario. At this point, it is a good idea to come up with a list of events that could happen when a specific situation occurs. Because events are an extension of the NPC's agendas, managing the plot's progress will be much easier if you have a practical method of tracking when triggers occur, as well as their associated events. As with minor NPCs, each event must be linked to one of the main NPC's agenda to represent the effects of the NPC's will on the scenario. Snooze some ads. To create an event, you need to write a short sentence containing an activation keyword, a trigger that will communicate when the event will occur. As soon as this happens, the storyteller can decide to bring the new situation into play, possibly taking everyone by surprise. In any case, it is good to leave clues along the course of the scenes to make the hunters understand what could happen, or alternatively, to give them time to prepare for an event that they have intuited and for which they start investing time and resources. So here we have some events that could occur for the Red Hood Iskra. If a hunter finds Iskra's pendant in the well, Anastasia will contact them, showing them a vision of Iskra as a child drinking at the Oak's Glade. If Elizaveta goes out of town for any reason, Iskra will immediately smell her scent and rush to eliminate her regardless of any risk. The first scene, step 8. Now that all of the elements of the scenario are defined, all that remains to do is detail the first scene, which will introduce the situation to the hunters and start the investigation. As described in the previous chapters, each scene consists of 4 elements: a place, a time, an initial situation, and information. Make sure to draw up a list of information which will be the basis for the hunter's choices in the following scenes. Opening up an investigation without useful elements to start from would make little sense. Step 9, the scene tree. The rules presented so far are optimal for the management of a game with an emerging narrative. If you intend to create a 100% complete scenario, even if only to make it available to the Broken Tales community, it's good to also detail a scene tree. This mode of play is not designed to cover every possible choice the hunters might make, but provides storytellers and novice players with a familiar way to play. Use of information at the beginning and end of each scene will therefore be more explicit so that the storyteller can present the choices available to the hunters and will keep them on the quote-unquote line drawn by the scene tree. It's inevitable that the hunter's actions will stray from what the scene tree has foreseen. However, for the most part, this mode will make it easier for the storyteller to keep hold on the reins of the story. Playing in this way requires a conscious agreement between the storytellers, and the players that the goal is experiencing that story together, following the flows of clues presented in each scene. So, this is kind of like, that's it. I feel like that is very much the difference between like when you have a bit of a sandboxy world for your players to explore in like a campaign versus having a we're kind of on rails campaign. I'm very much someone who enjoys a little bit. I like my bumpers to make sure that we're all going towards the same destination. And I think that is something that you definitely have to make your players aware of if you're going to be using that kind of if you're going to be using like a scene tree, or if you're going to have your players on rails, I think that is something that you very much need to communicate with your players, because some people don't like that, and that's fine. Oh, we are reviewing Broken Tales. It is a dark fairy tale TTRPG. We just went through character creation, and now we're sort of going through quote unquote campaign or scenario creation. But yeah, I think that it is important that if you're going to have, you want to be as transparent as possible with your players about the experience that you are trying to give them. And I think that there's nothing like, I don't know, man. I think like at the end of the day, like a lot of the issues that occur at like tables in TTRPGs is like due to miscommunication. So making sure that you're like communicating and being upfront about things is very important. I know that sometimes as like a DM, you might feel that like you want to kind of have like that element of surprise when it comes to telling a story. However, there are definitely situations where element of surprise is not always the best. And if you have a good table, the more they know going into like a scene or going into a specific situation, the better, actually. Because it provides them with time to think and think about what the best course of action is for not only their characters, but for the story itself. But Mark, this particular system, it's a pretty light system. Basically, when you do checks, you start off the check with 1 base success. And if you have a descriptor in your character sheet that would give you basically an advantage to the situation that would apply to the check you're trying to make, you would then get 3 base successes instead. And there are easy, medium, and hard successes. So I think like an easy success is like let's say it's like a 3, a medium would be a 4, a hard would be a 5. So you only have a base of 3 successes based on your descriptor, but you need, let's say it's a medium check, so you need a 4. You can then roll a d6. And if you get a 2 to a 6, that would count as an additional success, so you would pass the check. However, if you get a 1 on the die, you automatically fail the check. So very minimal, it seems like very minimal rolling. It's pretty light mechanically, very heavy emphasis on storytelling and your characters and improv. There seems to be a lot of emphasis on like improv in this game and like the role-playing aspect. A scene tree consists of a series of scenes linked according to this basic structure. The first scene leads to the second scene, then there is a choice between 2 options for the third scene. Option A and Option B. The fourth scene leads to a 5th scene, and then there will be a new fork or the epilogue. Depending on the scenario's duration, 5 scenes with a fork in the middle are optimal for playing a one-shot. One-shot session, about 3 hours. Additional forks and scenes will increase playtime by approximately 30 minutes per edition. First scene must be structured exactly as we've already described, but with the addition of a new item, End of Scene, which roughly describes which new scene the action will switch to. The new scene structure is therefore a place where the scene takes place, a time to know when it takes place with respect to the previous scene, an initial situation that defines what happens and what to describe to the hunters before starting the scene, information which can be obtained from the scene. Information will act as a guide to the hunter's choices, so it must be explicit. Don't be afraid to railroad the game too much. That's exactly what we're looking for. End of the scene, which is a brief description of the consequences of the current scene. The storyteller will use it to direct NPCs' actions and bring other elements to the attention of the hunters. Yeah, I love improv too. And again, like they talk about there's basically 2 ways to play this game. They talk about an emerging story versus using this scene tree that we're talking about right now, where the emerging story definitely relies more on focusing on what your characters are actually choosing and giving them less of a option A or option B, and it's basically, hey, you guys have a little bit more free reign here, and we're gonna go and we're gonna play this based on what your choices actually are, versus the scene tree, which will kind of railroads them a little bit more, keeps them on track because you have a kind of end goal you're trying to get to. Having 2 ways to run a game. Yeah, me too. I think, and it's nice that it's detailed this way. It's nice that it shows the 2 ways to play. I feel like a lot of times, I feel like in the TTRPG books that I've read, a lot of the times they'll sort of, if there's like a scenario situation that they have in the book, they don't necessarily show you that you can stray from the scenario. Whereas with this, it seems that it's very much, hey, if you want to play and exactly build on your character's strengths, if you want to play more into your character's strengths, then you can go with the emerging story. The other option to see, it's emerging story. So emerging story is very much based on like improv, and for DMs and players who want to focus a little bit more on the story and kind of guiding the story on their own, versus the scene tree, which is you're kind of using a bit more of a structured way to go about telling the scenario. But yeah, I think having like that emerging story, it definitely helps you build to your player's strengths. Yeah, and if you have a group who's really good at improv, emerging story is great. Exactly. And then if you have like newer players who are a little bit more timid, perhaps, and maybe aren't as good at improv, or just maybe are shy or something like that, like having the scene tree is really nice because you can kind of give them the answers a little bit more freely with this kind of play. And then step 10. As a final touch to the scenario, you can create a list of scenario gifts. This step is not mandatory. Exclusive gifts can be of 2 types. A scenario gift can be acquired during an interlude if the hunter has fulfilled certain storyline conditions. These gifts represent knowledge and skills that persist only for the duration of the scenario itself and are in addition to the 3 gifts the hunters already possess. The gift must be built with the rules presented in the hunter's creation chapter, and the narrative requirement for having it be considered as an archetypal cost. It is not possible to have more than 1 scenario gift at a time. And then a special gift. This gift is reserved only for the hunter who is the villain of the original fairy tale that inspired the scenario being played if present among the I like that. So if you are, so let's say you're playing in the Red Riding Hood and you're playing as the wolf. And you actually, as because it is your fairy tale that you're playing in, you get a little extra special something. I like that. I like that a lot. Some people talk about scenes as being more emergent versus plot trees being railroads, because a series of scenes is non-linear versus a plot tree. I think they're kind of using those. I think they're using the terms a little bit interchangeably. So like a scene tree, it's basically it is like a plot tree almost, where you have scene A and then you can go either into option A or option B, but then those lead into scene 3 essentially, and then you have another option, and then it leads down to the very bottom. The wolf was framed, obviously. And then we have Broken Europe, which is where the story of Broken Tales takes place. It's basically an alternative 18th century Europe. So you can take as much or as little historical facts with you, or change as much as you need. How is emergent different in this system? We can read. They had a little thing about the 2 differences. We can see how they describe each. So emerging story. In this mode, Broken Tales scenarios don't have a pre-built plot line, nor scenes or situations that are mandatory steps for the hunters, with the exception of the first scene. Writing the background, the story when the hunters arrive, detailing the NPC's agenda, and eventually adding information to the places will create a network of intentions and situations that will put obstacles in the hunter's way. A sandbox plot is key for a good game of Broken Tales. The hunters are individuals out of the ordinary, and their gifts can easily break scenes that are overplanned. The scenario must therefore provide the storyteller with all of the events and agendas necessary to allow the world to respond to the hunter's actions. Whereas a scene tree, if you and your table enjoy a more guided game, the last part of this chapter will cover how to create a scene tree that gives you a more defined plot line to follow. If the storyline of the scenario is heavily focused on investigation, a good option is to detail all obtainable information found in a place and be very explicit about it while playing. The storyteller will then have a series of narrative hooks useful to connect the situations emerging at the table. A network of intentions. Is there an example of this? I don't know. Let's see. See if they have it. Intrigue seems like they'd be better suited for one-shots versus emerging stories. So, yeah, definitely. Because like you're adding once you let your players have a little bit more freedom with things can tend to get a little loosey-goosey. So you definitely have to allot for the fact that those time is going to get added for that. Player-driven plot with ad-libbed ops. Yeah, that's kind of how it. Yeah, it's basically player-driven plot where I think with your players will develop their own agendas and what their goals that they want to do as they play through the scenario. Whereas the NPCs they encounter, and this is in an emergent storyline, the NPCs they encounter will react to what they are doing. So if you have an NPC who's a little bit neutral, and they covered that. So there's like 3 different types of NPCs. There's the ones who are going to be enemy NPCs, ally NPCs, and then neutral NPCs. So like neutral NPCs, if your player does something that goes against what a neutral NPC is like their agenda is, they will then become an enemy and they'll become hostile towards the party. You can even better control the pace when you want to. If your player is hooked on their own goals. That's true. I believe that as well. I think that when are you going to... No, I'm not going to DM anything at GaryCon. We're doing Tower of Gygax. So I think I think that's like 2 hours a day that I have like dedicated to doing that. Maybe 4 hours. I think 4 hours a day. Can't remember. Maybe next year though. I definitely want to DM something. I would love to DM like Alien or something like that. Who just go after stuff they want and bump into the party. And they talk about that too. They talk about that here, like where you have like when you in certain scenes, and they talk about like to trigger an event, like certain things, conditions must be met. So like if your characters do this, then they will encounter this NPC. I think the Tower Gygax blocks are 2 hours. Yeah, but I think there's like, I think we're doing more. There's 4 blocks per day. I think. So we would cover the 2 blocks. I don't know, man. I'm just doing the art. I'm just doing the character sheets. I don't know. Broken Europe. So once upon a time, year 1780. There are strange, half-sensed presences moving at the edge of our reality. Beings once relegated to the realms of make-believe have assumed nightmare forms, no less real for being fantastic. Alarmed by the constant calls for help in dealing with supernatural evil, Pope Clement approves the creation of the Order, a secret group consisting of the Hunters, led by the mysterious Guardians. The Hunters accept into their ranks anyone who has demonstrated qualities outside the norm, revealing a connection to the world beyond the threshold of reality. The Hunters' task is to seek out and defeat any supernatural threat. But aren't the Hunters themselves children of the twilight at the edge of reality? Ooh. I'm designing a campaign right now. I'm trying to include both elements, improv prep plus scenes, which I'm very interested. Oh, I get that. Yeah. I think that's important too, is kind of having, like, if you're doing like a campaign, I feel like having like a mix of like improv as well as having like dedicated scenes is kind of important. It kind of lets your your players have that little, you know, a little bit of freedom where they definitely feel like, because you want your players' choices to matter, and you want to make sure that those choices feel like they matter. But at the same time, if you have a story that you're trying to tell, it's important to kind of communicate that with your players so that they're aware, hey, this is the story we're trying to tell. And I want to be able to tell your story as well. And I want your story to be integrated into this story. So, and that's kind of how I approached, like, how I approached All We've Lost, which was my 5e homebrew campaign. I had an overarching story, and when we did a lot of the character creation, I tried to figure out how I could integrate each of my characters into the overall story. Oh yeah, micro stories. I definitely I like having each character, each player character, have a connection with the main plot. I feel like doing that like kind of raises the stakes a little bit, and it also gives them an incentive to actually give a shit about the story. Because I feel like sometimes, and this is me as a player saying this as well, sometimes we can be a little bit selfish in TTRPGs, where if what's going on isn't about our characters, or if our characters have no stake in it, a lot of times sometimes I can get a little disinterested. Whereas when my character has a stake in the story, I'm definitely more interested and I'm definitely more proactive in those types of games. But I think it is important to kind of have, as a DM, make sure that your players are buying into your story. We kind of talked about this already. So we get a little bit more about the, overall mood, what types of armor, the towns and everything, a little bit more detail on what the world is actually like. But I think also at the same time, like, you can definitely take this with sort of a grain of salt. 18th century broken Europe. It's an alternative version of our Europe, and you can take, I think you could take like alternative and kind of spin it any way that you really want to spin it. They say that you kind of want to make sure that you're sort of, it's supposed to be rural, so you want to make sure that you're kind of keeping things a little rural. You're not really heading into like big cities and like capitals and stuff. Ooh, look at that. Look at that drawing, dude. I'm doing for this game is starting players at 0 level, and they each have a chance to get training from a mentor, so there are plot hooks built in for whatever class of player. Oh, that's really cool. I love when people start 0 level. I like that. I like that a lot. Food, government, information. They have a lot of information about the overall world. My little Max book card somewhere. The scholar, scientists, religions, rich people's belongings, sickness, superstition, traveling, work. And then we get to spoiler. Warning, go no further if you don't want to lose your way. This part of the book presents the complete rules for playing Broken Tales campaign, all scenarios, and the truth behind the tale of the child savior. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's so good, dude. It's so good. So we're not gonna read a lot of this because we don't want, like, a lot of spoilers. However, I do want to look at the Alice in Wonderland one, if I can find it. Pinocchio. Little Pinocchio. Again, the art is just very fucking cool for this. Oh, Match Girl. And then we can take a look at like how basically the scenes are presented as well. I think actually seeing how the scenarios are actually physically set up will help a lot. Here we go. Wonder Bedlam. Scenario inspired by Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Safety keywords, mental illness, imprisonment, cannibalism. Baby, I'm in. Guys, I love cannibalism. So let's just read a little. We're gonna read this little Once Upon a Time, and then we'll kind of go look at how the scenario is placed. Once upon a time, no less than the Duke of Norfolk himself has approached the order with a request which must remain secret. 5 months ago, his daughter Alyssa was taken to Wonder, the Bedlam of York, the most renowned asylum in all of England. Under the guidance of a mysterious director, the Duke hoped for a quick recovery of his daughter, who possessed an attitude that was too rebellious and unseemly for a young noblewoman. After the first month, Alyssa's letters to her family became more and more terrified and delusional until they abruptly ceased. According to Alyssa's words, Wonder is hell on earth, where strange presences move in dark rooms, animated by an evil will. The Duke's plea to the hunters is simple: save Alyssa and shed a light on the dark dealings happening in the Asylum of Wonder. And then this sort of gives us a little bit of a backstory on this. And then it starts, and it gives you a little bit of a backstory on the so this is the backstory prior, like kind of setting up how the fairy tale mixes in with reality. And then this is kind of the story of the arrival of the hunters. So this is how your hunters arrive at the scenario. And then you have the first scene, and usually the first scene is going to be highly detailed just because it sets up the scenario as a whole. And then look at the little rabbit. So it has something for you to read aloud to your players. It tells you the place, time, initial situation, and the information. So the information is everything that you can reveal to your players. If your players like explore around the area. And here we have the location. And there are 3 gifts. So each of these gifts can be utilized by your players here. And then we have an NPC. We have Cheshire, the Faithful Lynx. So each NPC is going to have, well, not each, but all of the NPCs that are important will have a descriptor, and then they will have a gift. So the gift is basically a power that they can be that they can use. So we have Cheshire, the Faithful Lynx, Wonder Bedlam, which is the building itself. Other Doc, welcome on in. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in, raiders. We are learning Broken Tales. We're coming to the end of our learning. We're currently going through a scenario that is based on Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Broken Tales is a dark fairy tale TTRPG that kind of flips fairy tales on the head, where you are playing the villain of a fairy tale turned quote-unquote good guy? That was Frostpunk. Welcome on in. Thank you so much, raiders. Hi, I'm Myriad. If you don't know me, you can call me Miri. We do a lot on this channel. We do a myriad of things on this channel, including art, variety gaming, as well as TTRPG content, which is what we're doing right now. So we have Wonder Bedlam, which is actually the building. So the building is a person. The building is important. So the building has, oh my god, the gift is called Place of Pure Madness. When a subject attempts an action or uses a gift to change Wonder's insane structure, the building's inherent magic activates. Before the action taken is resolved, roll a die to see where the subject will end up. So if one of the PCs tries to break through the wall or something, this is basically like a, whoa, hello. if one of the PCs tries to break through the labyrinth that is the asylum, something bad could happen to them. Everyone say hi to Oatmeal. He just tried to jump out. He always does this when I'm specifically streaming stuff from my desk. He gone. Naughty. And then we have another room, the 3 cure room. And then we have Alicia, Young Girl in Love. Are all of these... So we have Alice, Alicia, and then Alyssa. Interesting. Wonder if they're all sort of named in relation to Alice. So we have another NPC. She's the main NPC. Or a main NPC. Oh, she's in love with Alyssa. Her agenda is, I want to save Alyssa from this cursed place and run away with her to live out our love in peace. I keep telling Bashman he's got... Let's have orange cat energy. And then we have a threat. So threats are the basically enemy NPCs. So the medium 5, that means that you need at least a success of 5 in order to like do any damage or attack him or something. And then we have Patience of Wonder. These are minor NPCs. Gift, why am I here? Roll a die to see what the problem led them to wonder. And then we have rooms and what's basically what can happen as they go into the rooms. I wonder how much patience they have. Hey, Calamity. So you would read out the descriptor for the room as they go into the room, and then when they are in that room, you would roll a die, and based on what you get on the die is basically what will happen. So if I rolled a 4 on the die as they're in the rabbit hole, Alicia's busy fending off a group of aggressive patients, and then they would be able to, based on seeing that happen and seeing that event happen, the players would be able to respond to that event. Caterpillar of the Wonderful Lands. We have another NPC. And then the basement. This would be another major location. And then we have Hada Carter, the Mad Inventor. He's another main NPC. It doesn't seem like... So not... Probably I would say not hostile unless the party does something to be hostile towards them. And there's a rabbit automaton that's actually fucking terrifying. I hate that. There's a lizard automaton too. That's also terrifying. I hate that. And then we see threat is Alice's special tea. Those who drink the tea, fail their defense check, will fall into a deep sleep for over 8 hours, only suffering severe pain, or the use of magic can awaken a sleeping subject. And then we see Alice Liddell, the director, so she would be a main NPC. Gives you the agenda for her. Safeguard what I have built within the wonder and all the incredible discoveries that the magic of madness can give to mankind. Solve every problem by transforming it into a patient to be treated. So she could definitely be seen as one of the main villains for this. See if the PCs are coming in and causing havoc in her asylum. And then we have the person that you're trying to rescue, which is Alyssa of Norfolk. And then here we have the scenario events. So in this scenario, there are 5 events. As a storyteller, feel free to create new ones in response to the actions of the hunters. When the hunters visit the 3rd cure room without first meeting Alicia, they will encounter Alicia, who is lost. The young woman will be reluctant to reveal her true identity, but will give her name and introduce herself as a patient. On a regular basis, if the hunters waste time in the entrance hall of wonder, one of the bedlam patients will walk out of one of the 3 doors into another. The patient will mumble disjointed words such as see the beyond and go under. If the hunters cause too much havoc in a cure room, Alice will take control of Cheshire and order the hunters to leave or try to surprise them by making it clear that they are being watched. If the hunters try to leave the basement, a desperate Hadda Carter will attack them with the help of his automata to keep his new guests with him. If the hunters corner Alice Liddell, the director will be ready to make deals such as freeing Alyssa or whatever the hunters ask. Alice's real worry is that Wonder might be destroyed. So we have these situations that can occur. These are like if A happens, then B happens. And these essentially are used in order to help drive the plot forward in an event, in a scenario. And then we have scenario gifts. So this is if you're using like an emerging story, I would say you would use these scenario events to kind of drive forward the plot a little bit, because at the end of the day, they're like you want to get the scenario done. So I would say if you're using an emerging story line, then you would follow these scenario events. But if you are using obviously a scenario tree, this is how the scenario tree is set up. So obviously you have your first scene, which is the arrival in Wonder. And then the end of the scene for the hunters, it will be clear that the only way forward is through one of the 3 doors. So the second scene is the first room. So you would then read aloud this section. And this is the information that they would find in the first room. And then the end of the scene, it will be clear that each cure room holds a clue to progress through Wonder. The hunters must move to another room and then go to the third scene. The second room and then the encounter with Alicia is the third scene. And then they would get the following information if they explore through the second room. And then at the end of that third scene, it would be clear that they have to go to the basement. And then the fourth scene would be the basement. And then they would get this following information, exploring the basement. And then at the end of the scene, after the Hadda and his automata are dealt with, the hunters know the formula to cross their mirror and finally discover who is behind Wonder. And then you would go to the fifth scene. So very much like you have the choices within those scenes. However, they will all lead down to the final scene, which would be the fifth scene, which is like the final like confrontation. So this is very railroad, very guided, but I don't actually mind that so much. Kind of flipping through. I've been looking at all of the 1001 Nightmares. Inspired by 1001 Nights. Definitely less information here. The City of Pigs, which is inspired by Three Little Pigs. Seems like there was one or two that didn't actually have like a scene tree in it. Ozina, the Suffering and Desperate, which is inspired by the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. But yeah, it seems like not every one had a scene tree in it. The 101 Nightmares didn't have a scene tree. Yeah. And then there's a little bit more in the back. Kind of talking about experience in a campaign game. And then we have, this would be the character sheet. So we have the descriptors, we have the gifts, the dark ego, descriptor, gift, wounds, equipment, soma, XP, description, hunter. And then additional notes you could take, so additional descriptors that you might gain during a scenario, story gifts that each, if you gain a story gift during a scenario, note that, your wounds, notes. Yeah, I think this is very interesting. Oh, we have a little map. And then these are all the backers, because it was a Patreon, I assume. Look at that. Little guy. And that's it. That's Broken Tales, guys. Overall, I think that this is a very interesting system. It's a very interesting concept. I definitely like it. I feel like it would definitely be a game that would have to be run with very specific table in mind, because I think that at the end of the day, for this type of game to really work, you as if you are the storyteller, you need players who are going to buy in as much as you do, who are going to put in the same amount of